Patriots. Welcome back to another episode of Appalachistan Prepper with me, your host, Old Core 1057. You know, we promised you early on that our channel was going to be more than just guns, camouflage, or radios and stuff. We're going to do some homesteading videos, and this is going to be one of them. Now, I want to state that we wanted to get the planting of the garden this year, and our schedules was all in conflict. So we didn't actually get to show the planting of the beans we're getting ready to show you how to can. But we did plant these. Well, my brother and his wife planted them, and we couldn't be there. But these are homegrown green beans down here in Appalachistan, and they're ready to can. So they've got them picked, and they're going to walk you through the process. Because anything you can grow for yourself, first of all, it's healthier, and you have control, and it's a self-sustainment thing. And that's what we're shooting for here, is be as independent as possible, and to rely less and less on, you know, the infrastructure of the government or what have you. So I want to introduce him. It's my little brother, Kevin. Very proud of him. He's a good man. He's always had my back, and I've done my best to have his. And we're down here, we share a homestead together, family farm. And his wife, Michelle, they've been together for 11 years. And so with that, I'm going to hush up, and I'm going to let Kevin and Michelle just walk you through the process that they do every year. And they usually can massive quantities because they usually have a very good garden. It's been a pretty wet year, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So it's not been the greatest season, but we still have beans. You know, the harvest is still there. So with that, I'll give it to Kevin and Michelle, and I'll get out of the way and just let them walk you through it, because we promised you more than just camouflaging guns. So here it is.
All right, so what we're canning today is going to be white half runner green beans. A lot of people in the area like the white half runners. A lot of them like the rattlesnake beans. A lot of them like the greasy beans. But we've always canned the white half runners. We raised them. They've been a pretty hardy bean, and they've done well in our gardens, and they've done well pressure canning. So what we're going to talk about today is a lot of the tips that will help you get better at pressure canning. Pressure canning, a lot of people are afraid of it. It's nothing to be afraid of. There's plenty of safety features on modern pressure canners, and we'll get into that when we get outside. Couple things. We'll talk about processing the beans, how to string them. Your green beans are going to have strings on both sides. You'll see the little line down the bean. You need to break that string out. Michelle can show you how to do that. Typically, each green bean is going to be long enough that you'll break it once, maybe twice. And that's pretty much it on processing them. Once you get a gallon Ziploc bag or whatever you want to put them in, you don't want to rinse them before you put them back in the bag. What we do is we just put them back in the bag, put them in the refrigerator. When we have enough to do a full canning, then we bring them out, we rinse them in the sink, put them in the jars, and we start putting everything together to take them to the pressure canner. So right now what we'll do is we'll just give you an example of that process. Now, one thing you want to do is your jars you're going to reuse, your rings you're going to reuse, your seals you're not going to reuse. Your seals, some people say that you can save your seals and boil them again and get another canning out of them. Maybe once upon a time you could, but the modern seal is not as hardy as the old ones used to be. These modern ones, they've gotten so junky and bad that what we do is after we take the rings off and it's obvious that the seal is intact and we've been successful, we put a little petroleum jelly, Vaseline, whatever you like. You put that on that seal, just a real thin, just enough where you can even see it or feel it. You don't have to be a big thick layer, just enough to keep the moisture off of it, because you put them away for a few years, sometimes you forget about them. They're in the back of the shelf. They'll draw moisture and those seals will rust. 30 years ago, they wouldn't rust, but these new seals will rust. So what we've done to get a longer shelf life is to go ahead and put a little petroleum jelly on it, and we've had no problems. You know, they'll collect dust, they'll look dusty and dirty, but when you wipe them off, they're just as clean as they were the day you canned them. So what we'll do here, one thing you want to do with your jars always is take a paper towel, you wet that down, and before you start packing them, you want to check your rim of your jar, and if you have any nicks or anything at all, you'll know it. You'll feel it. When you come around through there, you'll feel a rough spot. So you'll check each one of your jars, and then you go ahead and pack them. And you're really not
If you
packing
had a
them.
chip there, it would not seal.
If you have a chip in that rim, it will not seal. It may seal temporarily, but over the course of a day or 48 hours, it'll slowly release, and then your product will go bad.
So basically, if you get a chip on the rim of your jar, that jar is basically out of service for canning. I mean, you can use it for other things, but
I don't keep them because they'll get mixed back in sooner or
That's-
later,
that's
and
what I was-
and if you miss them the next time, then you're going to lose a whole can of
Right.
a whole can of beans or whatever else you're canning. And we use the same jars for meat. Meat's similar. It's a little different process, but your beans are going to be on your pressure canner. You're going to be at about 10 pounds of pressure for about 25 minutes. Once you get up to 10 pounds, from that point, 25 minutes, then you can shut down. You'll leave the pressure canner sit usually till the next day, and it'll cool down. The next day, it'll be cooled down enough. It'll be all the pressure's gone. You don't want to let the pressure off prematurely because it'll force the beans, because of the pressure differential, the beans in the jar, that water will start boiling again and it'll pop the seals. So best thing to do is
just shut it down.
just shut your heat down, walk away from it. Tomorrow you can open your canner up, unload your jars. So
when you rinse your green beans, you're also looking for bad beans, or if you don't get all your strings out as you're stringing them, sometimes a string gets missed or a bad bean will get missed. So and plus you're cleaning the dirt off of them before you put them in the jar. So you're just packing them,
these beans, this is the first rinse these beans have had since they were picked. So
and they're really good beans this year. I didn't hardly find any spots, so. And that's a plus, because if you find a lot of spots, it's hard to break them up. It takes a while longer. And you want to pack them down as tight as you can and get as many beans as you can in it. And usually I fill them up and then he goes and pushes them down.
yeah, we push them down a little bit, but not real. We don't get real aggressive because you don't want to crush them. And then what you'll want to do is, and we use, just preserving pickling salt, Ball brand. Or sometimes we use, sometimes there's a couple brands that some of them come in a little bag, some of them come like this. We're not being paid to advertise for this brand or anything. It's just what we use. But basically, for each quart, you're going to want a teaspoon of salt, just like that. And if you do a pint, say you do a pint of meat or something, then it's you just cut the salt in half.
And then you add water.
Yep. What you want to do is you want to go ahead and fill that up to the shoulder. You want to leave a ½ inch to an inch of headspace, and what that does is that allows, after the cooking process, that allows it to pull a vacuum. And as they cool down, see during the process, you're cooking the beans, pressure is being released out around the rim of the seal, and when it starts to cool down, it pulls a vacuum. And that's what keeps your seal intact. Is that actually every jar of beans is going to be under vacuum. So we've already looked at it. We've already checked everything out. And then what you want to do, we set them aside. We do all of them. Mm-hmm. And once we get them all done, we put the rings and seals on. And these seals are in a pan of water. And what you want to do is you want to bring it to just steam, just a real slow simmer, and that softens that orange seal. And that'll help them seal better when you put the rings on.
So is there anything, once you get your lids out of the water bath that you're softening the seal with, and you tighten up, how tight do you tighten the rings?
Well, the rings, we've learned the hard way, but realistically, you just want to snug them. Just snug them. Just not even tighten them. You just want to snug them, real gentle snug. If you tighten those rings down, if you start canning and you're learning, you're just getting going, and you get your jars out the next day, and your seals are crinkled and they're puckered and they're distorted, your ring was too tight, and that's the only thing that'll cause that. And we spent a whole season when we were learning, trying to figure out, man, those seals must be really junky because they're puckered, and so my instinct, not knowing, was to tighten them down more. And you keep tightening them down until pretty soon they can't push any pressure out around that seal, and that's when you start breaking jars. So if you're puckering your seal and you're breaking jars, your rings are too tight.
So the jars will actually break in the canner during the process, and you won't know that
So
until
tomorrow,
you open it up.
till it cools down enough to open it up, and you know.
So theoretically, if you over tighten your seals, there's conceivably you could have an entire canner full of broken jars.
We've had multiple ones break on both levels, and you know, last year I had one jar break last year, and that was an old jar that had been in the mix for probably 12, 14 years, and it broke right along the bottom, and I think probably was just more of an age related. You know, it just finally got to the end of its life. I don't think I didn't have any other issues with any of the other jars. And the seal didn't pucker, and it was I mean, nothing gave me any indication that it was anything that we done wrong during the packing process, but I think it's just an old jar.
So let me ask you this, just for the sake of clarity and how reliable and efficient this process is for canning beans and other vegetables. What is the oldest quart of beans that you've ever canned, and then how long you actually open that jar to eat them? What's the oldest that you can remember?
It was open 14s.
Yeah, we've got some out there. I think we've got some out there that go back to 19 right now. They're 6 years old, but we've eat stuff we see that we canned. I don't know, 11, 12 years. When you buy your seals, one of the things that says on the box is that it's good to preserve up to 18 months. Well, that might be the way they rust, but now the old seals were thicker and they didn't rust, and we had some deer meat that we canned that was rediscovered after 11 years that had other items put in front of it, and things got moved around, and there were 26 pints of deer that was 11 years old, and it was as good or better than the day it was canned. So it was just fantastic, and all of it got eaten. So the bottom line is, it'll say on the seal, that these seals will preserve meat or preserve whatever up to 18 months. It's a lot longer than that. As long as you don't break the jar or break the seal, as long as nothing gets damaged and it's still holding vacuum, and that seal's still pulled in tight, that product is good. And I don't want to say indefinitely, but a decade, 2 decades, 20 years maybe. I wouldn't be afraid of it.
If you were, let's say you have a bunch of canned goods put back using this process, what would be your visual indicators of a jar that had failed? The seal had failed. What would you be able to see looking at it? Anything?
Well, the first thing, the center of that seal, it'll look like it's raised. It'll be an indicator, and you can walk up and push on that seal just like this, and if that seal moves, if you push it down,
you've lost vacuum.
You've lost your vacuum. You've lost your seal. And a lot of times, the other indicator will be that you'll notice first will be you'll have mold growing on top of your product, or it'll be discolored or darker. You'll have a jar that's darker than everything else. So it's pretty obvious.
So there's really no fear of picking up a jar of something that maybe you found that's been canned for 15 years. Mm-hmm. If the seal is still tight, the lid doesn't move, or you don't see any visual indicators as you're looking through the jar, then
it's not as the risks aren't there like some would have people believe. There was a big movement some years ago about, I read an article about the dangers of home canning and home processing and doing things yourself, and clearly the article was written by people that had never done it, didn't understand it.
Well, there's a lot of articles about a lot of subjects that are being written by people that have never done it and don't understand it.
But everything has a process. Changing your car battery is not the same process as changing your tire, and canning beans is not the same as canning meat. Canning beans, once you get them to the right pressure, 25 minutes, shut down, and it's over. To do meat, you're going to come in 5 pounds is what it calls for. And it's going to be a 90-minute, hour and a half process. So, you know,
But at the end of that process, sorry to interrupt, but at the end of that process, when you put that canned meat on the shelf, you can go back to it and eat it right out of the can because it's fully cooked within the can.
Fully cooked. And, you know, here's the other thing.
Or the jar, I should say.
A lot of people say, well, there's no reason for me to do this because we don't raise a garden. Well, there's a lot of reasons to learn how to can. And one of the reasons is whatever market you shop at, whether it's, you know, a big box store that has, you know, a grocery section, or if it's just a grocery store, you know, down home grocery store. You get in on a sale of anything, pork loins, chicken breasts, anything like that, you can it. You know, it'll last, you know, if you put it in the freezer for 10 years, you'll probably end up throwing it out. If you put it in jars for 10 years and you don't damage those jars over the course of that 10 years, you got a safe place to store them, you'll still eat that meat. So, you know, you run into a deal somewhere that is, you know, and sometimes there are very good deals. And another option for food to can is food banks. A lot of your church food banks, they get things in bulk and
perishable,
and it's perishable and it's frozen. And you know, sometimes you find chicken breasts that are boneless and skinless, and they're all you have to do with those chicken breasts is drop them in a jar, add some salt. On meat, you don't add water because it makes its own broth during the cooking process. So you drop it in there, add your salt, and put your seal on after you check your rim, and you go to your canner for 90 minutes. And you know, some of these food banks where they have, you know, some of them are real successful, but a lot of people, the bulk meat is a package is too much. They don't want that much. They know they're not going to, you know, it's going to be hard to consume that much meat, and you know, unless you've got a lot of freezer capacity, or if you've got some other way that you might keep some of it, you might take it. But a lot of people would rather not take a big package of chicken breast, because if it's just, you know, a husband and wife, they're, you know, they just want to deal with it. It's too much.
So in essence, in let's say like that kind of a scenario, a food bank could conceivably get a large shipment of fruits, vegetables, meat, whatever the case may be, that is a perishable item, food item, and the people really may not want it, and the food bank would be stuck with having to do something with that. So it's not like
well, what they do, what happens is when that product gets to the point that it's got to go, then you end up with a handful of people that end up with a carload of it, and they take it and distribute it to family and people that, you know, didn't take the time to go over there, and so it gets distributed, and maybe it gets used, maybe it don't. But in the case of fruits, anything, peaches, plums, sometimes you see strawberries, you know, but we've seen a lot of peaches and plums. And you know, this year we made Michelle made jelly for toast. And all we had to do was just, you know, use what we already had. Use our jars and our rings and our seals, and you know.
I know. A few years ago, the supply of seals was a little bit iffy. What are you seeing these days?
Well, that's your weak link on your canning process. You know, all your rings. These rings are been used multiple times, and you can see by the discoloration, they don't last as long as they used to either. So you'll buy a box of 12 rings and seals occasionally just because you need rings to replace the ones that's getting rusty. If you use these rusty rings, they're harder to get off the jar after the fact. Now, what we do, and we didn't used to do this, but we do now, is once a day or two goes by and the seal it's going to hold, we're confident that it's a good seal, we take our rings off, separate the rings from the jars, and put the rings in a big basket where they can stay dry. They don't draw any moisture. Sometimes these jars will sweat a little bit, but once you put that, you know, jelly on the, you know, whatever you like, you know, Vaseline, once you put that on your seal, you really need the ring off of there to do a good job. So the ring doesn't hold the seal. It's got vacuum to hold that seal. So that ring doesn't mean anything once that seal happens and it pulls vacuum. So, you know, there's no reason to leave the ring on. But the rings are the weak link. So if you get into canning and you like it and you're doing a lot of it and you realize, I should have been doing this a long time ago. There's all kinds of things we can. You're going to find out that those seals, sometimes they can get hard to get during the canning year when everybody's doing it. When the people that do can are doing it, the seals can be hard to find. So what we do is over the course of the winter time, we'll buy a whole flat at a time. There'll be like 24 boxes of seals. I think there's 12 in each box. So, we buy, it'd be, well, right now they're pretty close to $100 for a flat of them. But, at one time we had well over 1,000 seals in reserve. And we're getting low right now because last year we canned a lot and we're going to do a bunch this year. So we need to get back to buying them in bulk.
Have you ever encountered seals that were just too old or like poor quality control or something? Has that ever been an issue?
Well, there's a lot of different brands of seals. There's Kerr and there's Mason, Kerr and Ball. Kerr and Ball are the seals we use. There are lesser brands that are less expensive, but if you handle them, you're dealing with you get what you pay for. So I stay away from them.
In
I don't like the way they.
jars.
Yeah, in jars too. You can buy cheaper jars, but if you buy balls and Kerrs and things like that, they're going to last you year after year after year. Some of the other jars are a little thin, and they're not. They don't stand up as well.
It's been my experience, the quote unquote cheaper jars, you usually find more of them broken in the canner when you open the lid than the traditional brands that we're all familiar with from the old days.
And one of the things we do is we'll push these down a little bit, and as we get to the end of our what we've got rinsing, we may have to go back and add a few to get everything used up and try to get them all in. And then sometimes if we have just enough left over for a mess, then we'll save them back, and later that day we'll just do a mess for supper. Where was it for? Oh, there's the sorry, I got salt. We're going to add a teaspoon of salt to each one. And actually, we should have checked the rims before we got this far to make sure, but if we find a bad one, we'll replace it. Did it?
And I use 3.5 bags of broken up beans, and that usually does 14 jars.
You had mentioned the pre-processing where you shouldn't wash your beans.
Right. If you wash your beans and before you can them, and then you just keep them back until you do can them, they will ruin because they'll soak up the moisture and then it ruins the bean.
Yeah, they'll mildew and mold. And
So what you're saying is, before you put them in the refrigerator, you do not wash them.
Yeah,
you
don't
just break
rinse
them
them.
up, put them in the bag, put them in the refrigerator, and when you get ready to actually pack your jars, at that point, that's when you wash your beans.
That's when you rinse them.
Right. And too, after you pick them, if you don't have time to break them up, you can also put them in the Ziploc bags and put them in the refrigerator. And then when you get time to break them up, it's fine too, as long as you keep them cold and don't wash them.
That's what works for us. Now there may be, some of the viewers may have experiences. They may do things a little different, and we're not saying this is the best way or the only way. This is the way we do it. This is what we've discovered works for us. This is what we've learned over years of doing it, and I can't stress enough that people recapture some of this type of knowledge, pass on to their kids and grandkids, because there's less people doing this than ever. There's less gardens than there once was, and pressure canning opens up a lot of opportunity to increase your food storage away from just your freezer and your pantry. Anything you put in your pantry, it's on borrowed time. Same way with your freezer. Doesn't matter. Eventually, everything freezer burns. So
Let me call out something, just a little thing you might want to clarify. I see you using that paper towel to go around the top of your jar to check it. I'm assuming that's because if there would be a chip and you did it with your bare finger, you would cut yourself.
yeah, you could, but with your finger, you may not feel it, and you know. I'm getting some age on me, and if I just run my finger around there, I might miss it. But this right here, this will snag, and
Okay.
it will identify
Okay,
itself.
we wanted to clarify
Yeah,
the use of that.
I've never cut myself on a rim that had a chunk. And what happens is it'll be just a little chip. It'll be a rough spot, and you'll feel it. And
But the paper towel will grab it.
the paper towel will catch it. You'll feel it better like that than you will if you try to just do it. And if you happen to be in your 20s, you might feel it, but I'm not, and I'll probably just go right over it and never notice it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and fill these up.
So you're only taking the water to the point of where the jar begins to curve at the top,
Yeah,
right?
the shoulder of the jar, and that'll leave you enough air once you get the seal on. It'll leave you enough air, or what's called head space, that it can still cook, but when it starts to cool down and the cooking process diminishes and goes, it's done. As it cools down, it's going to pull that seal, and that gives it enough air there to actually pull the seal. If you run your water too high, one of the things that'll happen, and beans aren't so bad, but meat's really bad. But if you run that water all the way up, when it gets hot enough and that water expands, particles of the food will push out. And once it does, chances are you're not going to seal, because you're going to have little pieces of meat or whatever you're
Debris.
canning. It's going to be right there. It's going to be debris, and it's not going to seal. Another thing about, canning, a lot of people I've talked to are afraid of the canner. It's noisy, and, they feel like it's dangerous. Well, with beans, you're talking about 10 pounds of pressure. 10 pounds of pressure isn't really that much in the big scheme of things. Anybody that works around boilers and in the industry, 10 pounds of pressure. 10 pounds of pressure is, bicycle tires probably got more than that in it. So it's, but a lot of people are afraid of it.
You remember we used to blow ourselves off with 90 pounds of airline pressure at a place we used to work.
Well, people did that. I don't know. I don't want an OSHA violation, but yeah, it's the norm. But no, realistically, you're not dealing with a lot of pressure, and most of your all your moderate pressure canners. You've got your weight, or what a lot of people call it. The old timers called it the jiggler, and it releases pressure. And when that weight starts to rock back and forth and it starts to spit, you'll have, like the one I have, is 3 settings: 5, 10, and 15 pounds. We're going to set it on 10 pounds, and when it starts to make noise, then we're going to back it off a little bit, because we want it every once in a while. We want it to spit and sputter, but not a continuous. If you set on 10 pounds and it never shuts up, it never stops, you're making more than 10 pounds pressure. It's because it's releasing pressure at 10 pounds.
And just to clarify that weight is calibrated to where 10 pounds of pressure should raise that weight and allow the excess pressure to escape.
Anything over 10 pounds
Right.
gets out. Yeah,
But then-
it'll hold it down to 10 pounds.
But then at 10 pounds, the weight will overcome
Yeah.
the pressure, and it basically automatically adjusts the pressure inside the canner, maintains a 10-pound equilibrium.
Yeah, and your lid on your pressure canner, you got a couple things going on. You've got the weight that's going to allow it to relieve pressure. That weight's going to relieve pressure once it hits that 10 pounds. Anything above 10, it's going to let it out. So that's a safety feature. You're going to have a plug that has it takes a certain amount of pressure to blow the safety plug. And on mine, I can't remember what it is, but it's more than 15 pounds because the weight goes up to 15 pounds. So the plug is probably, I'm going to say it's probably, if I was going to guess, maybe 20 pounds. But you've got that going on. So you've got the weight, you've got the safety, and I mean, there's just not that much can go wrong.
So-
It goes back to just your carrier, your canner. Your weight is sitting on a little nipple, and one of the things you do before you start is you verify that the passageway is clear. If that's plugged, you're never going to get your weight's never going to move because you're never going to get that pressure to it. So right now, yeah, I checked them already. So right now we're gonna.
And so this is a magnet that I use to get the seals out of the hot water, because we make sure the seals are warm. Then I put it inside, and then he
You just go, just
snug
like
it.
that.
Just snug
It's
it.
just when it stops, that's good. It doesn't have to be tight.
And this way we don't burn our fingers.
Okay, Patriots, as you can tell, we've moved everything outside to where we're actually going to put the quart jars of beans that's been prepared. We're going to put them in the pressure canner, and we're going to let my brother Kevin explain to you the details of and all the little helpful hints that he's learned through many years of doing this. And just wanted to let you know we've changed locations and made a segue here. So with that, I'll get back out of the way and let Kevin do his thing. So here you go, bub.
All right, so what I'm dealing with here is this is an all-American pressure canner. This is I think it's one model down from the largest canner they make, or it was at the time that I bought this. I've had this probably close to 20 years. This one will do 14 quart jars at a time. Now, normally if you buy one from a big box store, you're gonna get one, it'll say 22 quart, and that's liquid quart. It's actually 7 quart jars. Is all you can at a time. But this one will do 14 jars at a time.
Just clarify, is this All-American, is that a brand, or are you just saying this is an American-made canner?
Both.
So the brand name is All-American,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
actually
And,
everything is USA.
Yeah, and again, no endorsements from All-American.
Right.
I've got the other 2 major manufacturers. I've got one of each.
Probably Presto, probably.
Yeah, you know, I you know, 2 other brands, they're good pressure canners. I don't have any faults with them. However, those pressure canners take a rubber gasket, and over time, rubber gasket gets bad and you got to replace it. And sometimes you can find them, sometimes you can't. With the internet, now it's a little easier. But what I've discovered is with this canner, not only can I do more product, you don't have a seal. You don't have a rubber gasket. This is a taper-like system. You can see this bevel here, and on the lid behind me, you can see this rim is also tapered, and this is a metal-to-metal seal, and that's the beauty of these All-American pressure canners. And again, All-American, they don't, you know, we don't have any kind of an agreement or anything. It's just, it's the best canner I found. So a shout out to All-American pressure canners. But as you can see, you've got your weight, you've got your safety relief seal, and then you've also got a gauge that tells you how much pressure you're running. So to get started, one of the things you always want to do each canning is you want to make sure everything's clean. And what I use is a 4/0 steel wool, and we're going to go down here to our 10-pound selection, and they're easy to see. And what you want to do is you want to clean inside where it rests. Make sure it's all clean. And then you can see this discoloration. Now watch what happens when we clean that. You see there how it's nice and shiny? And you want it that way. You want it nice and clean. And then the other thing you want to do is you want to make sure you can see light through it, and you can. So we're good. We're going to put our weight on now. We're done.
Let me interject at this stage. You talk about the weight, commonly called a jiggler valve. So if that were to malfunction in any way, you want to be aware of that. Should begin to make noise, and you can kind of look at your gauge. And when you're hitting that close to 10 pounds, you should expect to see activity start happening on that jiggler valve as it builds pressure and relieves. Now, if your jiggler valve, say it gets stuck or doesn't have free motion, if you monitor that pressure gauge and you see, you're set for 10 pounds, but you're looking at 15 pounds on your gauge, and your safety plug is not already popped, I think the correct course of action at that point would be to immediately kill your fire, correct?
Yeah, you want to turn it down.
You want to turn it down and let that pressure go. It will mitigate. So I just wanted to.
Yeah.
So you can monitor that gauge to ensure that all the other backups haven't failed off. So you just in conjunction with one another.
You got three systems working on the same cook. You got your gauge, you got your weight, and you've got a pressure relief valve that is your fail safe. If everything else goes wrong, or you fall asleep in your chair, or whatever happens, and the worst happens, that is going to release
before the canner explodes.
Before the canner explodes. So back to the seal on the canner. One of the things that's beautiful about these canners is the maintenance on these only requires same steel wool. Take steel wool and you'll clean this certain sealing surface with your lid. You'll clean your lid, and then you'll wipe them off good, and then you want to put a little thin layer of Vaseline on. Just a little bit. You don't have to have it clumped on there. You just want a real thin layer, and that is the seal. And that's all you have to do with these. The next step is one of the things that a lot of people mistakes they make over the years that I've noticed is you got to have a little bit of water in your canner. Okay, you don't have to have the canner full of water, but what I do on this canner takes roughly a gallon of water or a little less. And what this is, I use this same jug, but I use white vinegar. Put about a cup of white vinegar in, fill it up with water, and you just want to dump the whole thing right in the canner. Now the white vinegar, what that does, if you have seen mason jars with a white film on them, it's a lime kind of a limestone film
from the water.
As that water boils, the minerals comes out of that water, sticks to that jar, sticks to that glass. The vinegar prevents that. So to have your product look like it does when you put it in, when it comes out, you're going to need to add about a cup of vinegar to your bath. So that'll prevent that from happening. So now the only thing left to do is start loading up. You'll bring those over. Put your bottom layer in. It'll hold 7 jars. Bring them up. And you put your divider on. Put your next 7 on. That's that. Now, one of the things when you go to put your lid on, you'll find, and if you can see this arrow right here, it's an indentation right in the middle. You have an arrow here on your lid, and what you want to do is you'll start off offset it, and then you'll run that to them arrows are lining up, pointing at each other, and that's when you know your lid's in the right place. Now, what you want to do is you want to rock that lid back and forth. You can see my hands. I'm checking the gap on that lid to the rim of the canner. Try to get it close as you can, and then you want to bring up a couple of your wing nuts. And what I do is I just when they touch, I stop, and I go back and double check everything, and do 2 more. If you crank them down, you'll cock that lid, and you'll get your gap. You get your gap offset, and then you'll leak, and you're going to leak a little bit anyway, more than likely. So go back.
But you want to alternate side to side as you're tightening, just like this fuse changing the tire.
Just like lug nuts on a tire. And that's it. You just want to snug them down. You don't got to crank them down, because that's a metal to metal seal, and as it heats up, it'll seal. And I always, if your gauge isn't turning to where you want to sit, you can turn your canner, do what you got to do. So we're good to go. Now the only thing left to do, turn this valve all the way on for your tank. Get her going.
Now you could do this on your stove inside, whether it be electric or gas also.
Yeah, glass top stoves, they recommend not doing it. And they also recommend not using a turkey fryer burner for pressure cannon. Never had any trouble. It's all in your heat. If you crank that thing up high as it's going to go, you may have problems. But you don't want to do that. You don't want to force heat into it. You want to let it take the heat and just bring it up slow. You don't gotta give it all the BTUs that it can produce. So, It's a simple process. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just watch. We're going to watch our gauge come up, and when we get up to 10 pounds, we should start seeing a little action on our weight. And this canner is, like I said, it has canned thousands of cans of food, and I've got a spot. Of course, you can see the discoloration, but as this thing moves, it'll spit out, and it discolors and it'll drip a little bit. That's the only place that I'll drip any. All the way around here, I mean, the seal's always been good, but on that side there, because of the jiggler, I will drip some. So other than that,
Now we wait.
It's a waiting game. We just sit back and wait, and enjoy the evening, and watch the horses graze, and watch the garden grow.
Now, how long does it typically take to reach 10 pounds?
We should be up to 10 pounds in 15, 20 minutes.
Right.
It's going to take a little while. I mean, I could crank it up, but I think it's bad for the canner. It's bad for the jars. I mean, I think we just, like I said, I give it about half or a little more than half of what it'll do, and I just sit back and relax.
Half on the valve.
Yeah, half on the red valve. I could, like I said, if you listen to it or watch it, you can see it's. I got a lot to play with there, but I got a good solid flame, and it's doing its job. So we'll watch the gauge, and when we get to 10 pounds, and what happens a lot of times is on the weight, when it starts heating up, for whatever reason, it'll always stick just a little bit, no matter how good I clean it. So what I do when I get it to about 10 pounds,
Sure
I'll spin it, and it'll start spitting and spluttering.
Yeah, so you confirm that it's free floating.
Yep. And other than that,
So is there anything we need to say before we cut this? Because there's no point in sitting watching. 15
don't be
minutes
afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it. Pressure canning is a wonderful thing you can do right in your own home. You don't have to have a garden. You don't have to have a farm. You can buy things that's on sale at your favorite grocery store. You can get bulk products from your local food bank at your church or a neighboring church, and you can be canning. And
I'm going to make this observation or comment that when I was in the Marines, on day one and probably minute one of hitting those yellow footprints, they were preaching to us attention to detail.
yeah,
And as I've said in previous videos, the value in attention to detail is if the little things are correct, chances are the big things are going to be correct also. And so the attention to detail, preparing your beans, putting them in the jars, as he explained the seal and what to look for, and to ensure that your jiggler valve is clear and functioning, free floating, all of that, all those little things combine to make the overall process successful. So, if you attempt this and you run into an area you're not unsure of, there's, whether it be the internet or I'll say it like this: if you're trying to do this and you've never done it, and you have a question, hit me up in the comments when this video posts, and we will get you an answer based on what we do. Now, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So we're showing you how we do it. We encourage you to start learning, just as the radio videos, the antenna videos, the first aid kit videos, all the videos we've done on Appalachian Prepper up to this point. We're not telling you everything there is to know about every topic. What we're trying to do is show you this is the overall, the main parts of each topic, and we're hoping to generate some curiosity and some interest that will, we want you to say, hey man, I want to do that. I want to can some stuff. And you don't got to go whole hog or big scale. You can start out small. But that is the goal here, is to get you to say, hey, I can take care of myself. We can be independent, and we can live in liberty. And part of that is having the knowledge and the skills that will give you a means to live without being dependent or reliant on everybody else for everything. So it takes a community. I've got a great family here on my homestead. We work together. We each have different things that we kind of specialize in around here, but we work together. So, you know, having a group, and I've said also on these videos many times, if you're watching this video, chances are you are going to be the leader of your group if you're not already the leader, or you're going to be the duty expert on whatever topic you may be, you know, whether it be the tactical firearm side, or whether it be the actual growing of the crops, or the preserving of the food. But it takes a team. And but if you are alone, you can. I'm just saying we all work together.
Well,
and if you have any questions, which I got side down bad for it, but shoot us a question if you have one, and we'll do our best to get you the answer.
Well, one thing, even if you're alone, it's rewarding to do this type of thing. And you know, there's a lot of things on the internet, and again, you know, this is how we do it, and this is what has worked for us. I'm not saying it's by the book line item. I'm not saying it's the best way or the only way. This is the way we do it. Hopefully it helps somebody get started. This canner, again, you know, a shout out to All American. It's the best canner I've owned, and it is, you know, again, I can do the competing canners 7 jars at a time. So the time frame to do 14 jars, it just cuts it way down using this canner. Now, the downside to All American canners, they're expensive. I mean, I'm just going to tell you flat out, when you look them up on the internet, you know, sticker shock. I mean, they're expensive, but hey, they're an American product. Support American manufacturers, and not only that, but because of the way this is designed, it's going to last as long as you don't drop it in a way that destroys something or warps it to where it can't seal. As long as you don't, you know, something really, really unusual doesn't happen to it, you'll pass this canner down to your kids, maybe their kids. When I bought this canner, the first thing I did is I bought consumables that I expect to fail. I bought extra gauges. I bought extra wing nut. I bought extra weights. All the things that I expect will eventually have to be replaced. I went in and bought those up front.
Well, that goes hand in hand with this overall prepper mentality, because
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
when you have consumables, I'll give you for instance, I needed a new weed eater head for my weed eater. I went to get one. They have redesigned them now.
I know.
So the old style ones are not available. However, the new ones will fit my weed eater. But I've been caught with a stockpile of consumables for a head that is on its last legs. So, you know, if you make an investment in something such as an All-American canner, and it takes consumables, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and bite that bullet a little harder and get you a supply of those consumables should the supply ever, you know, run out, or they become discontinued, or you know, just become obsolete.
You know, we went to this canner because our gardening increased, and our, you know, it cut the time down so much, didn't it? Mm-hmm. The other brands, and I've still got them, they're fine canners. I'm not dissing those canners at all. It's just this one allows me to do so much more, so in such a smaller period of time. But the thing is this: buy what you can afford, buy what you're comfortable with, and if you find yourself growing, then upgrade.
Yeah,
and you know, the thing is, there's nothing wrong with having a backup canner. So you know, it's a learning process. It's a you know, you grow through it. You know, and
well, I mean, you may start out with maybe a lesser canner, and you may say, this does what I need it to do. You may never
step up. You may never step up to something this big.
We were up to Phil Sticker's place yesterday filming, and we were talking about, you know, what they were doing up there on their homestead, and I told them about, and you remember several times we've had meals, like Thanksgiving, big spreads, the table covered, not just one or two items, but
everything but the ham.
Everything. Well, I mean, we've had,
or the turkey.
No, I'm not talking about Thanksgiving. I'm talking about when we would have those dinners that everything came off the farm.
Oh yeah.
The wine, the water, the meat, whether it be chicken or pork or beef.
Yeah.
But we would have entire dinners here on our homestead that every item on the table, except maybe the condiments, were something we grew, or we hunted, or we raised, and we prepared and preserved as a group, and brought them together.
You know, one thing I want to touch on something you said too, and you know, there's a lot of discussion on the internet about off-grid. The term off-grid gets thrown around pretty loosely, and really off-grid, I think what most people in their mind, what they're thinking when they say off-grid is, it's not really, you know, well, you can be off-grid but not be remote. You know, I don't consider us remote, you know, like you would be in Alaska or the Canadian Rockies or some other western states. We're not remote. You know, we got a state road right there, you know,
right.
And it's, you know, except for Saturday evenings and people get home from work, there's not a lot of traffic on that road. But the thing is,
we may be off the beaten path a little bit.
Yeah,
we're not urban by any stretch of the imagination, but we are not.
Well,
isolated.
we're not remote, and I don't consider myself off-grid by the standard that some people hold to, but really off-grid is reducing your dependency on big box stores, reducing your dependency on your electric company or your city waterworks or whatever your utilities are coming to your home. Anytime you can reduce dependency, you are moving towards an off-grid, quote unquote,
self-sufficiency.
Yeah, it's more of that. It's more about reducing the need for those utilities.
Minimizing the reliance on public
Exactly. So, you know, it's, you know, off-grid. Some people feel that if you say I'm off-grid, well, you got to be remote. You've got to have none of the conveniences. You got to have, you know, well, you got a generator, so you're not off-grid. Well, you know, sometimes you need that extra power. Sometimes solar don't cut it unless you've got an awful lot of, you know, panels and storage. So, you know, everybody's got their own idea of what off-grid is, but realistically for me, off-grid is just is being a little more in control of your dependency on the community in your county seat, in your state, and you know, it's a good feeling when you do things for yourself.
Well, I think too that if you are, say, partially off-grid, like I would say that maybe we are here on our homestead, should the situation arise, we could just kind of ramp up what we're already doing and maybe be totally off-grid.
Yeah.
If we were forced into that kind of lifestyle. So with that, we're gonna cut, and we're gonna wait for these jiggler valves to start jiggling, and we'll be back. Stay tuned. Hey Patriots, we're back. You know, we let the beans cook for their appointed time, and I'll let Brother Kevin close us out on that and tell us where we're at in the process.
All right, so we've reached our time. I do them at Michelle and I do them at 25 minutes. Again, you know, some people do them a little less, some people do them a little more. 25 minutes is kind of where we ended up. Seems to work. We don't have any failures. We don't lose any that way. I'm a firm believer you can overcook them, but 25 is where we stop. So we're going to shut the fire off and call it a day on the beans, and we'll get them open tomorrow and see how we did.
So with that, Patriots, we're going to close this episode. We're going to go say our goodbyes, and we'll get some shots of the finished product beyond the video, and we hope this has helped you. We hope it's been educational. If it wasn't educational, at least we hope it was entertaining. So, you know, this is well within the means of any adult human being to do this. So we encourage you, if you haven't ever done it,
absolutely,
to start. And just everything I say, whether it be the building of the IPAC kits, knowledge about your rifle, radio things, we're hoping to spur some curiosity and get you started down a path that will give you not only satisfaction and pleasure, but will also give you skills that will make your life more fulfilling. So with that, remember, Patriots, the maximum effective range of excuse is 0 meters. Keep the faith. Semper Fi. I love you guys.
Love you too.
And always, always demand
freedom.
liberty.
I said demand freedom.
Hello, Patriots. Welcome back. We talked it over a little bit, and we decided to expedite the process so you could see the finished product. And we'll let Kevin and Michelle show you what we've accomplished here tonight.
So we're holding the rags, they're still hot, but basically what you see is the finished product, and you can tell by the color of the beans, they're fully cooked. They're not as dark as they were, and they've sealed good, and we've had a successful canning. And we hope that this has been helpful to anybody watching. And if you have any questions, by all means, reach out to the website, and we'll try to get you an answer that'll help you get further down the road in your canning experience.
Michelle, you got anything you'd like to add?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, we're going to try this again, Patriots.
Demand liberty.
Demand liberty. So with that, we'll see y'all later. We hope you've enjoyed this video. It's been kind of long, but sometimes when you're trying to teach a skill, you can't do it in a 60-second short. But anyway, we're glad if you made it this far, we're glad you stayed with us. And if we can help you in any way, just shoot us a comment. But with that, Phil Core 1057 signing off. Remember, maximum effective range to the excuse is 0 meters. Keep the faith, simplify, and always, always demand liberty.